Hey y'all. I hope y'all can hear me because I'm outside and I decided to put on these headphones because I wasn't sure if the sound quality would be fucked up once I do finally upload the videos. And plus, I'm outside at the park, so it's gonna be like 1,001 people walking behind me. So I don't want everybody to trying to get my lighting right in my business. Paper's flying. Paper's flying. Back to the papers. But anyway, not to waste time, starting on my Venus series, the planet Venus. Venus symbolizes all that is beautiful, but beauty is always in the eye of the beholder. Always remember that. But not to get too like deep into the darker side of Venus. I'm gonna just talk about the lighter side. Venus, the planet itself, Venus is graceful and charming and tasteful. Venus lights up our senses with flavors, smells, sights, and sounds and sensations. And that's a lot of the reason why I wanted to come to the park and do it outside because of those type of things. Also, Venus is a very closely Earth-bound planet that's close to Earth, so it actually orbits very close to Earth. So the planet Venus itself, the color, not of the planet, but the color that represents the planet is the color green, which is the scenery behind. Now to drop some tea on the darker side, just a small bit. It's charm and Venus is entice and seduce, and then it eventually can become poisonous if it's handled the wrong way, especially the way that you seduce and charm. But eventually it can become a poison to your happiness if it's on the darker side. You need to possess, or the need to possess can become very intense and almost impossible to like let go of. But you don't want to ever let Venus in the aspect in your chart ever get to that point. I apologize, paper flu. So you can become content in relationships on the darker side of relationships on the darker side of relationships with Venus in play. I know my words is all over the place right now. It's Mercury retrograde, so bear with me. You can become miserable, all because of the energies. If you don't know what the energies you or your partner is working with. So if you are, and don't get me wrong, squares are not always just bad, but they can be bad in certain, depending on how it's manifested in certain aspects. So you don't want to have very harsh aspects to your Venus, or another person having harsh aspects to you having harsh aspects to their Venus, because then it can create a fucking mixture for a disaster. Rough aspects to Venus can be held whether in synastry or natally. But when stuff like this happens, only in letting go will you find peace and appreciation and know what appreciate. Let me take that back. But when stuff like this happens, only in letting go will you find peace and appreciation, and know without grasping and needing to have, we find lasting happiness. So basically that means that when you hold on to something too tight, you always want to give love a certain degree of detachment. You don't want to hold on to it too tight because it can become a fucking mystery. A mixture of just bullshit and disaster. I know right now I am like fucking up this video, but I'm not doing it over. Y'all will get the point once it's done. But Venus in our chart shows us our passions, how intensely we are attracted towards others and experiences and possessions. It's a position that can tell us how we fall in love. This is also the planet of gardeners and every kind of artist as well. as well as those who want to succeed in business. So don't think like it's just all about love, but for the most part it is. But it's not all about it. It can definitely show where you excel in career as well. Venus represents what we value and how we express that appreciation as well. All in all, we need to learn from Venus is that loving intensely, it can make us strong, it can make us ready for the world, it can make you feel like you're on a high that you will never come down from and be ready to risk it all. But it can also expose us to a lot of disappointment and heartache and just hurt. So, like I said, you just want to know what you're working with before you start fucking working with it. Venus is also here to teach us to learn to make, not make, but to move beyond our attachments and accepting loss by welcoming change and still being loving even when you feel like you can't. That's what people are emotionally conscious, who are emotionally conscious, appreciate when you know, I guess, don't become so bitter after breakups. You know, don't become so hateful or so hurtful, because it's a lesson to be learned in everything. Also, Venus, oh yeah, that's what it was. Venus was seen over the last 8 years by, I think it was astronomers and astronauts, of course, but I think astronomers over the last 8 years seen that, like I was telling you about Earth, they seen that during this time it was making 5 loops that were caused by retrogrades, constantly Venus going backwards in the, what's it like, in fake term, like it's not literally going backwards, but the energy is backwards. So like in the sky, it can appear like it's moving backwards when it's in retrograde. That's what it means. But it's been seen 8 years ago, over the 8 years, that the motions to the different speeds of the orbit around Earth were actually depicting a goddamn rose. It was the planet Venus, the way it was orbiting around the fucking Earth. It was, the way it was orbiting around the sun, not the Earth, the way it's orbiting around the sun, it orbits like a rose, and that's why it gets that representation of the rose, and that is also why it is a planet of love. And then I think the symbol of Venus is the rose. I'm just trying to make sure I really need to say any more of this. Oh, that's what it is. So, its symmetry depicts, like I say, a rose. It shows how the planet's movement touches our conscious with the subtle physical experience of beauty. But space exploration has discovered Venus has a very heavy poisonous atmosphere. And it's going to get you right here. And if put together, ancient and modern perspectives instructs us that beauty may best be experienced when we maintain a degree of detachment. So just as beautiful and captivating Venus is just as, just like sugar. If you eat too much of it, you're going to have a fucking stomach ache or you're going to get a toothache. So too much of Venus, too much love is not good, and too much less is. So you have to always remain a certain level of degree of detachment, and that's what Venus is really here to teach us. Venus is beautiful, the planet is beautiful to look at, but once again, you can't go to the atmosphere. You gotta remain a certain level of degree of, I feel like when you give people space, that's love as well. So it all, depends on you. I'm over here hearing crazy shit. I'm in this park with these fucking ducks and these animals, so I'm over here. I gotta keep my eyes peeled just because I gotta skate. But generally, Venus is a benefic planet, a planet that mostly brings good no matter what sign. And benefic means good planet, benevolent planet. Not saying that all planets, each planet has but you have a benevolent planets and you have malefic planets. All are not bad in those terms or whatever, but I don't want anyone to think that just because it's a benefic planet that it's always going to be good. No. Or if just because it's a benevolent planet, it's always going to be good. A malefic. So, a malefic. But like I said, but a planet whose influence is often negative is called a malefic planet, such as Mars, the planet that we just finished discussing, and I just did my whole series on. So, without further ado, I am going to start Venus in Aries.